Hey everyone, welcome back to a special presentation for Black Ass Art History. This is entitled Make It Come to Life, Liberation Through the Lens of Fashion, Hair, Art, and Afrofuturism. The title Make It Comes to Life comes from an excerpt from an interview of two-time Academy Award winner for Best Costume Design Ruth Carter. In this interview, she explains how that as creatives, we have this responsibility for making it come to life, and that would be for any creative in general. So today specifically, we will explore how cultural aesthetics are useful tools to engage and create ideas of liberation. Particularly, we will be looking at how liberation is exemplified through fashion, hair, and art, and filtered through that lens of Afrofuturism. So what exactly is Afrofuturism? Well, there's many ways to define it. It's a cultural aesthetic, philosophy of science, as well as a philosophy of history that explores the developing intersection of African diaspora culture and technology. It is a way of imagining possible futures through a Black cultural lens. It is an intersection of imagination, technology, the future, and liberation. Ultimately, it is how Black people have always envisioned the future and practiced the idea of Sankofa, which is going back and getting it. So Afrofuturism stretches across a breadth of applications and expressions, be it film, literature, music, visual art, fashion, performance art, photography, philosophy, pedagogy, cultural expression, theology, politics, sociocultural, you name it, it's there. It also encompasses a wider range of themes: alien or otherness, utopian ideologies, dystopians, the technological divide, feminism, the grotesque, the profound, the reclamation of culture, spiritualism, religion, rituals, all possibilities. But let's talk about giving a birth to a thing, specifically when it comes to our attire. I don't want fashion to be dictated from the top when the bottom gave birth to it. That is a quote from Dapper Dan. So, who is Dapper Dan? Dapper Dan is your American fashion designer, and he's a haberdasher. Basically, he's a dandelion. For those who don't know, think Andre 3000 or Farnsworth Bentley. He owned the Dapper Dan boutique from 1982 to 1992. He was inspired by the monograms of big house designers like Louis Vuitton, Gucci, and Fendi. So what happened is he would get access to these monograms, but give them that urban Harlem, New York flair, whether it's with jackets, the Letterman jackets, whether it was with denim, blending in fabrics. And in the mid 80s, he would work with hip hop artists such as LL Cool J, Eric B. and Rakim, Salt and Pepper, and many more. The shop was closed in 1992 after being sued by the designer houses for illegal use of monograms. Specifically, no one really knew this was happening across the other side of the pond. What happened is there was a video footage of an incident that occurred in front of his store, and that's they were able to start to see their monograms being used in what we would now consider urban wear. But in 2018, a partnership with Gucci was established with Dapper Dan. He ended up designing a collection. And in 2018, he opened another store in New York. And these are just a few examples of Dan's works. It would be Dan's brilliance, along with an eye-opening interview between Tommy Hilfiger and Oprah Winfrey about his clothes, where we have our own urban clothing. For those who don't remember, Oprah Winfrey had Tommy Hilfiger on her show, and it was alleged that he made the statement, had he known minorities were going to wear his clothes, he would have not made them so nice. So if you think back to early to mid 90s when they started wearing Tommy Hilfiger, this was that moment. So, of course, in the mid 90s and onward, urban clothing line and urban streetwear soon began to dominate the market. Brands founded by musical artists, designers, and the community in general soon celebrated the vibrant culture of our music, our community, our aesthetics, and also through the power of the Black dollar initially. These are just a few of hundreds, and I do mean hundreds of brands that emerged between the 90s and the 2010s that had a urban, definitely hip hop influence and inspired aesthetic. And it's like that today, which brings me to Miss Narisha Willis. She is the ANVU official founder and was frustrated with how the aesthetics that have emerged out of Black culture is often listed as hood, ratchet, and ghetto. And what's interesting is that the term has its roots in the Italian word guittare, which is an Italian for casting. In Yiddish, it is getex. So this whole idea of ghetto was never ever truly applied to people of the Black diaspora. It was in the city, it was in Venetian cities of the 1500s, and that's where they referred to the Jewish area were restricted to live. I'm only highlighting this because I want to talk about the variations of how, art shows up and with the theme ghetto until proven fashionable. Because we know with colorful hair, nails, earrings, all the aesthetic, the gold teeth, that was considered unprofessional until it hit the Milan and Parisian runways. But let's get into music. Now, I do want to put this out there before I transition into music. There is a myriad of artists I could have looked at because Afrofuture goes way, way back. I could have brought in folks like George Clinton, Jimi Hendrix, Sun Ra, Earth, Wind, and Fire, the LaBelle, Betty Davis, Miles Davis, and how not only with their style, but with their music, with DJing, with synthesizers, and the evolution of beat machines, sampling, and more, really highlight our aesthetics. But if we're going to talk about Afrofuturism in fashion, we have to start with Melissa Missy Misdemeanor Elliott. Missy Elliott debuted her album Super Duper Fly in 1997, and for many of us, it was nothing that we'd seen before. Her single, The Rain, the Super Duper Fly, had Missy in some oversized glasses that almost looked as if they were becoming a crown, with a black suit or this blown up trash can that caught everyone's eye. Not to mention, she used the epic fish eye to even create a more futuristic, kind of voyeuristic image of herself. Yet it is still not only her limitless creativity in not only music production, but her fashion sense in addition to music videos that set her apart. She's played with jerseys, homage to early styles of fashion and hip hop, and no one has ever quite rocked an Adidas jogging suit quite like Missy. Yet it's her music videos that truly highlight not only her fashion, but the use of technology, graphics, and optics. Again, her fashion was as unique as her bars and flows. The trash bag with the crown glasses, Sock It To Me featuring Little Kim and Da Brat, paying homage to 90s video game Method Man. Her all-black aesthetic when she won her iconic Vanguard of the Award, or that emblazoned denim outfit in Get Your Freak On. You can definitely see that her style and her vision was way before her time. And if we're also talking about before her time, we have to talk about Erykah Badu. Baduism, which also debuted in 1997, told the stories of our heritage of the South with juke joints, educated us on NOI, Nation of the Earth and Gods, Metanetzer, and more. It was the style of unapologetic Blackness and the celebration of its breath of the 70s with dashiki, leather emblem necklaces, natural hair, and head wraps reign. Yet her style would evolve, moving from Black power attire to expanding the vocabulary of Blackness, from locks to shaved head to braids, past her bottom to oversized blazers and fitted jeans to custom gold teeth, oversized hat, and more. She famously said, when it comes to fashion or any hot heart, you have to have a combination of delicacy along with taste. So when we think about two videos that stand out, first and foremost is Didn't You Know? Dressed in a futuristic outfit that is definitely Afrofuturism and still keeping with her high head wraps, it almost appears as if she is the last standing human or humanoid in a post-apocalyptic dystopian. Maybe she's a survivor of a world that ended of destitution, or possibly an escape to a new planet looking for peace. The second video is Next Lifetime from Baduism. Badu's character is transported through timelines where she is introduced to another partner. The date for 1637 AD for the motherland is intentional. This was the same year that the Dutch overtook Elmina Castle off the coast of Elmina, Ghana. They expelled the Portuguese from maintaining the fort in Nevada, Elmina, and now they held the largest port to export gold, silver, and stolen Africans. 1968 in the movement is another critical year of the Black Power movement, and it's emerging after Stokely Carmichael transferred the civil rights era from the saying freedom now to Black Power. And for those of us who knowledge bears of numerology, the number 1400 is so that would be 3037 minus 1637 is an indicator that you are in sync with the universe as it relates to purpose and goals. Also, if you look at the text, she even adjusted the text to show that time traveling and persistency as well, in addition to costuming, location, and more. We also have to talk about Outkast. At the time of their debut, hip hop was at this critical point of East Coast, West Coast. However, the South was about to bring some heat. The duo Big Boy and Andre 3000 dropped Southern Playalistic Cadillac Music in 1994, and in my opinion, changed the landscape of hip hop. There were so many cuts which channeled the likes of Isaac Hayes and Curtis Mayfield, bringing funk and classical together. I believe it was the 1990 Source Awards when they won Best Duo or Rap Group, and Andre 3000 infamously said, while being booed, the South got something to say. And they sure did. So from the oversized t-shirt and oversized jean, Outkast began to play with personas and personalities in both aliases as well as their style. Big Boy alternative personas included Daddy Fat Sacks, Sir Lucius L. Leftfoot, Chico Dusty, while Andre 3000 was Three Stacks, Ice Cold, and Johnny Vulture. I believe each of these personas had distinct look, whether it was preppy to looking like a Midwest player from the Player Bomb. They never ever shied away from taking risks and experimentation, expanding what Blackness can dress like and possibly be when it comes to pursuing possibilities. Andre 3000's classic prototype music video from the double album Love Below and Speaker Box is quintessentially Afrofuturism at its best. Andre and his alien family come crashing onto Earth unbeknownst to a female photographer. From black and white tribute to early sci-fi to the inversion of colors that appear neon, which is the color that we see, gives us almost like the colors we would see when we envision listening to the likes of Jimi Hendrix and Sun Ra, for him to transition from being alien to human. Let us not forget their sophomore follow-up 18 Aliens, where the duo, along with the illustrious production group Dungeon Family, created sounds and music that were out of this world, or made it seem that ATL was its own universe, allowing themselves to envision and play with Black aesthetics with our liberation in mind. Janelle Monáe, I'm just going to say it, has become a style icon. Originally with a tailored feminine suit with a palette of black and white and a coily pompadour, Monáe fashion evolved from the attire that Black folks wore as the domestic workers, usually suited in black and white, to experimenting and expanding that simple palette with pattern, textures, often moving into makeup and hair. Monet is considered a dandelion, similar to Andre 3000, Dapper Dan, and many more. And we learn about what she is as an artist. Monet would still incorporate her Kansas City cool, that black and white motif, but again, effortlessly she pushes boundaries and demonstrates all the possibilities of black and white. And even when you look at her discography, it is very much 1930s to 50s sci-fi film literature. Metropolis, Electric Lady, The Ark Android, Dirty Computer. It is specifically Dirty Computer. The film is Afrofuturism, again at its finest. To give a synopsis, per IMDb, it is a visually stunning story of a young woman named Jane 57821 who lives in a totalitarian near-future society where citizens are referred to as computers. It is an exploration of pursuit of happiness, freedom, and of course, liberation. Although this film is futurism with extreme technology, the adornment is ancient, and the bejeweled piece Monet wears is ancient and tradition of African traditional spirituality. She is referring back to the Orishas, be it from Yoruba, Santeria, Lukumi, and more, often wore these face coverings during ceremony to remove the individual that embodies, to remove that individual's identity so they can embody that Orisha or spiritual building and the essence of Orisha. For me, it also relates to Paul Laurence Dunbar's poem from 1898, We Wear the Mask. And it's a short poem. We wear the mask that grins and lies. It hides our cheeks and shades our eyes. The debt we pay to human guile. With torn and bleeding hearts we smile, and mouth with myriad subtleties. Why should the world be otherwise, and counting in all our tears and sighs? Nay, let them only see us while we wear the mask. We smile, but, O great Christ, our cries to these from tortured soul arise. We sing, but, oh, the clay is vile beneath our feet, and long is the mile. But let the world dream otherwise. We wear the mask. And lastly, I'm going to mention Monet's counterpart, Jadena. I mentioned the term dandelion when I spoke of Janae, Andre 3000, Farnsworth Bentley. So specifically, a dandy is an individual who's unduly devoted to style, neatness, and fashion in dress and appearance. When Jadena first emerged, he gave us the pure, finest aesthetic of Harlem Renaissance. He would pay homage to the dandy and dapper brother, walking with custom canes and even a process, giving us the rage in Harlem. But along with his evolution, he would also tap into his Nigerian roots and begin to evolve not only with his music, but his philosophy. And of course, that is often reflected in aesthetics and our style, that he is both comfortable and inherently connecting to a motherland. The cosmos of our cosmetology. When your sister does your hair, you do not need a mirror. The beauty of our hair is not only the variety of textures, curl patterns, pigmentation, even the ones existing on our head, that echoes the same sacred geometry throughout and touches of life and nature. Our hair can shapeshift, it defies gravity, absorbs oceans, is maps and paths of constellations. And no, I'm not being dramatic, it is the truth. We see that every day in the expression of the plethora of sheen and shine that emanates from our scalp. And it was not uncommon for colonizers, Western European explorers to sketch and document all that they quote unquote found and stole on the continent. The irony is that none of them, or many of them, did not travel far. They would not even leave Europe. However, they gleaned and gathered and embellished stories and images from other travelers. And these etchings and drawings would circulate throughout Europe between the 15th and 17th century, inviting people to explore and seize the richness and the wealth of the culture of the people. In some publications, their intention was to other us. However, our hair has its own language, signature, significance. There's an intricacy of braiding, pinning, wrapping, dyeing, adorning with jewels, or even clay. All were means of communication. It could communicate your title, your rank, if you're single, if you're married, if you're widow, if you're going through rites of passage, if you're with child, your trade, and so much more. Hours would be spent on the hair alone by your family and community as a form and bonding. Have you ever wondered how certain food made it to the New World? Seeds and grains were often braided into the hair as we traveled far distances or even relocated, including the transatlantic slave trade. I would not be surprised if certain plants made its way to the areas captured by the trans-Saharan slave trade as well. Either way, even in the demise of our ancestors, they were still thinking of their future and, most importantly, their survival. And this is visual artist Iyang Asin, and she wanted to explore the practice of survival through her photography. And in a culture where hairstyling is not only an acquired skill and high art, i.e., the Bronner Brothers hair shows, hair has made its way to the museum like the works of Shawnee Crow. Crow was not the first woman to explore hair as a medium of art. One of my favorites is Lorna Simpson, has done incredible work. Yet Shawnee explores all possibilities of her natural hair, braiding patterns that may have been maps to navigate the freedom from the U.S. Atlantic trans-slave trade and American slavery to the patterns that have echoed the landscape of a distant home. Hair braiding is a master skill, and the more intricate the pattern, the more praise that was received. Here's an example of her work. The first model featuring cowrie shells have significance all across Africa. Cowrie has been used for currency, adornment, protection, as well as a representation of a woman's womb. The second one is a halo, and even the model is posed in a typical Christ-like image, and maybe even that could be the image of Heru from ancient Kemet. And lastly, the model's hair echoes the Neter Hathor in ancient Egypt. Hathor represents love, beauty, pleasure, and fertility. She also represented precious metals, dance, music, and she was a protector of women in foreign lands. And with the help of technology, we now have the opportunity to create and expand what we believe we can conceive with hair. More importantly, this is absolutely a great representation how digital artists and digital arts have created aiding in software use for good. For many gamers of African descent, character creation avatars have limited options to customizing a character. Mostly, they would look like white folks with melanated skin. Again, a variety of skin tones, hairstyle, and textures were often limited. So, thanks to these Black digital artists creating these textures and style across, melanated people now have a breadth of options to create characters that look authentic, not an umber brown white character. So, in the world of visual art, in the realm of visual art, Black folks have consistently visualized what our future may be. Oftentimes, it is centered around community, family, growth, and expansion. In these specific examples, we will look at how art, specifically utilitarian objects of everyday life, bowls, clothes, regalia, furniture, even ceremonial objects, are often put together by not only the resources they have readily available, found objects, but again, liberation. So, one artist that I think about most importantly is the artist Nick Cave. Nick Cave was born in Fulton, Missouri, one of 8 children. And at a young age, he received hand me downs and learned how to sew and alter his clothes. He was raised by his mom and grandparents and assisted with the chickens on the farm. He would obtain his bachelor's of art and fiber arts from Kansas City Art Institute. He also met iconic choreographer Alan Alien in 79 and would take classes with Alien Summers. He would go on to get his master's in art and teach and worked as a fashion designer, but still his heart was connected to art and dance. In 1992, the Rodney King beating sent shockwaves through the U.S., especially if you were a young Black man. Cave recalls sitting in a park processing what had happened to King and looked down and saw a twig. He started collecting these twigs for whatever reason and then fastened a suit. This would become his initial sound suit. These sound suits specifically emerged for him processing overt racism as well. They were a way to obscure and protect someone's identity and race and gender and ability. He would also use a variety of materials as well as work with students and community to put together percussionist and performance. So this is just a quick video from Vogue.com of Nick Cave in his sound suit. And I apologize, there is no sound to this. But you kind of get the idea of it. So again, his suits would go from found objects to using any kind of fabric or objects that would make sound, have movement, show celebration. There would be creatures, there would be human-like folks. Again, a variety of things. Next is Ruth Carter, who the lecture was inspired by. So, Ruth Carter is a legend in fashion, specifically costuming. She started using the sewing machine at the age of 9 at Boys and Girls Clubs. And I just want to interject right here as an art educator. If you see a child or know a child or your child is interested in anything creative, please support them and encourage them. Buy them supplies, take them to the events, enroll them in the classes. Just a encouragement from an artist and art educator. I digress. But while working at the Theaters Center in Los Angeles, she met Academy Award winning director Spike Lee. From there, her career took off with such films as Do the Right Thing and Malcolm X. She also worked with Steven Spielberg on Amistad, Ava DuVernay with Selma, also Marshall, and of course, Black Panther and Wakanda Forever. This is just the image from one of her exhibitions showing her vast creativity, her brilliance, her possibility, and making fictitious characters like T'Challa, Queen Ramonda, Killmonger come to life with her ideas and more. And to bring technology into this was echoed in this tech driven country of Wakanda. But even in the costuming, 3D printers were utilized to create not only Queen Ramonda's crown, which was fashioned off of a married Zulu woman hat, but also even her shawl was used with a 3D printer. So, what does this look like towards liberation? When we think about it, again, luxury is to be able to take control of one's life, health, and the pursuit of happiness in a way that is joyful. And that comes from icon fashion editor and now ancestor Andre Leon Talley. So when we think about spaces, I'm going to start here in Cincinnati. One space that I have to give homage to is Sweet Sister Splash. Now, I could have went to their website, but I'm going to give my own personal testimony. Sweet Sister Splash is a commune that allowed me to return to home and a return to self. This space, from its humble beginnings, facilitated healthy relationship with our community, a space where Black artists and creators were celebrated. We had reggae nights, workshops, and expanding events and larger community engagement. The vision was there before the Black Lives Matter movement, before 2020, all of a sudden. Black visibility and connection to Africa was one of the key elements. It is a commune, it is a refuge, and it is home. And beyond just being a hub for items and treats that are healthy for mind, body, and spirit, it is clearly a force to be reckoned with. From financial literacy courses to education through the forms of grant writing to wellness space to a health center to educating children on how to run their own business and more. It is the cornerstone of what liberation in action looks like. Although no longer in existence, Black Pearl was a traveling event that was created by two queer Black women in Cincinnati, DJ Raw and LaToya Watson. For the longest time, there wasn't a space for our Black LGBTQ family to be able to be their complete and authentic selves. These pop-up events encourage the celebration not just of Black LGBTQ communities, but Black joy at its finest. And beyond the city of Cincinnati, you have places and venues and events like Afropunk, and that's always been a space for liberation. Founded in 2003, related to the documentary on Afropunk, Black alternative-minded folks, founder James Spooner created the festival with support from the Brooklyn Academy and Museum. It highlighted Black folks' participation in the genre of what we consider to be alternative music, be it rock, punk, metal, steampunk, what have you. So again, liberation through creating community and celebration. By 2008, the festival shifted from an alternative to just a celebration of Black people. Today, Afropunk exists in multiple cities such as Atlanta, Paris, London, Johannesburg, South Africa, Salvador, Brazil, Miami, Florida, and Minneapolis, Minnesota. Afrofuturism is the premise that Black people exist in the future. Having vision for tomorrow is the mindset for liberation. Beyond the many revolutions that Black people have brought to in theory and in practice, the biggest liberation starts when we understand our community and understand self. And understanding we make meaning through how we dress, fashion that complements, and we also make meaning in spaces like barbershops, salons, someone's kitchen or living room, through our music, through our crafts, visual arts, and so forth. It is through these expressive connections that thoughts, views, opinions of freedom and liberation, because sometimes there's no words for it, yet some way, somehow, there's a through line and we recognize it and it is familiar. So, look, my parents taught me at a young age true freedom is when you are your complete and authentic self. So, yes, liberation is our hair, it is our style, it is our art, it is our aesthetic, it is our being. That is Afrofuturism, and that is our liberation. Thank you all so much for joining. Stay out for look out for a full series on Afrofuturism, visual art, art history, and cultural politics. Take care. Peace.